You don't have to sit like me.
Well, I don't know. I'm trying to figure it out.
Yeah. However you're comfortable. It's hard to be comfortable in front of a camera, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
All right, are you comfortable?
No, but now I am.
Okay. What the hell is the ego anyway? That was part of your class.
That was Freudian terminology for self.
What the hell is
ego?
that? What is the self?
Let's not go there.
Okay, now,
All right.
during this, if you guys just want to start talking or interrupt each other or add something, feel free. It's a conversation. It's not a stilted, you can't talk till he's done type of thing. I don't want that at all.
You can also just make stuff up.
Okay, like on my promotional applications?
Yeah, just, I think...
Why don't we start with the genesis of this whole project?
Okay.
And I think that would be you.
Yes. So I had taken a class with Mark about 18 years ago, and I had found that through a friend that he'd accumulated the largest collection of talking clocks in the world, and at the time was making documentary films as part of another project, The Americans, and so a friend mentioned to me after that project was essentially over that you should check back in with Dr. McKinley, because I think he would be a great subject for one of your films. And so I came, reconnected to Mark, and he said no.
That's right, I did say no. The reason I said no is partly related to my lack of enthusiasm for the film. In other words, I'm 75, I'm at the end of my career, I've had my applause and fame and fortune. I was on Walter Cronkite, CBS National News, and in the my daughter's grade school paper. What's the name of that paper? I think they still have it, I'm not sure. But anyway, those were significant events in my life, and they occurred 30, 40 years ago. And as I say, when you get to be my age, as I'm a smoker, I am a speeder, I am a drinker, and I'm a sinner. How much time do you have? And so when he said, let's do a movie or a film or a video, I said, no, I don't want to do it. What for?
But this started a new career phase, because now you're a filmmaker. Actually, Mark was already a filmmaker. When I reconnected with him, I learned that he'd made over 180 YouTube films. So he's made way more films than I have. And we got many of those films in our film, Forever Professor. So
I just remembered, though, I also made a video 30 or 40 years ago that won an award for Kent State University Film Festival. Now you're going to ask me what the title of that film was? Good.
I think we looked for that film. I'm also Mark's archivist. Is that how you pronounce it?
Mm-hmm.
At this time? So when I went back looking for things in the collection, that film was missing.
Because he and I got along, actually, and I didn't know we'd get along for as long as we have. But no, we got along, and he'd stop over at the house to do some shooting.
And we had brandy.
We would have a Courvoisier. And so I think the Courvoisier sort of bound us, as did then the film. And the fact that he's a nice guy.
Thank you.
Because I think I've had an interesting life. Yes.
Well, for me, when I reconnected with you and found that you'd collected over 1,000 talking clocks and that you had this deep interest in time, and then we started to go into your past, and then we found, you know, Cry Baby, the record you made.
Mm-hmm.
What year was that? Make it up.
1971.
71. And the Book of Dreams. And so I think, in a way, and Mark was, to me, one of my favorite professors because he's a good performer. I think of him as an artist as well. So, you know, he did the 2-minute, he broke a world record for doing the most number of figure eights on a personal transporter. These are things that students remember. And, you know, playing a record in class of crying babies. Again, I think that you leave an imprint so that 20 years later, people who took your class, they remember the ideas that you taught because you have a certain style and energy that's interesting.
Well, I think the other thing that, if you will, makes me an interesting person is I have so thoroughly enjoyed my tenure at Lorain County Community College. So much so that it showed in everything I did, including the classroom. I never missed a day due to illness in 49 years. I grant you that's fortunate, but I think it also reflects upon my interest in what I was doing with my life. Well, in the really old days, I was teaching at Port Huron Community College. The community college movement was relatively new, and I was very young. I think I was 22. And we used to sit around the bar talking about what's happening in the world, and we realized, 4 or 5 of us, that we had never flown in an airplane. So what we decided to do is to fly in an airplane to job interviews. We didn't necessarily want the job, but it was a free flight. So I went to St. Louis Community College, all girls. I knew I wouldn't last there, and went to Colorado. Didn't think I would like the winters. And then the strangest thing happened. Lorain County Community College called me. Because remember, the community college movement was new. And they said, would you like to come for an interview? And I said, can I fly? And I don't know who I talked to. I think it was the vice president. He says, no, you're in Port Huron. It's only about a 2 or 3 hour drive. I said, oh, okay. So I left and came here, and the interview was held at the Maple Inn, of all places. Now, that wouldn't happen today. The president, the vice president, and the director of the psych department, all 4 of us sat there, drank for 3 hours. In fact, they said their college is under construction. And I said, oh, come on, I've heard that before. We drove out to the college, and there's a sign, under construction. I said, now I believe you. This is after 3 hours of drinking. We went back to the bar, and I don't remember, Vice President said, McKinley, here's your contract. Would you like a job? I said, yes. My God, what a great day. And then, I was married at the time, and I remember where the phone was in the Maple Inn. I said, well, wait, I should call my wife first. And so I went to the payphone, called Judy. I said, Judy. She says, where the hell are you? She didn't even know I was going for a job interview. I says, I'm in Elmira, Ohio. She said, what are you doing there? I said, well, I think I'm about ready to sign a contract for employment. What do you think? Now, in those days, wives tended to go along with their husband's decisions. And she said, well, honey, if that's what you think is best, sign the contract. And I did. That's how it started.
Why? What's wrong with job interviews in bars? Why don't we do that anymore?
Well, first of all, you get a DUI driving home.
What if you got a designated driver for your applicants?
No.
I think it's a good choice.
No, not today. Since I haven't seen the film, I don't know. I really don't. It was just a concern about the usage of my time. That was the only concern I had. Well, I think it was probably an accident of psychology and where it happened to be at the time in my career, and liked what I found out in my investigations of time, particularly from a psych perspective, sure. And then that coupled with the start of my talking clock collection.
That's a good question.
That's not a good question.
That's a great question.
No. In other words, if what you're asking is, am I an obsessive compulsive regarding time, the answer is yes. Oh, no, no. No, in fact, I own 40 acres of a mountaintop in California, and I don't go there. No clocks. Oh, I have been there to my property, sure. You mean, would I go and be a Grizzly Adams?
Yes.
No. No.
This was a challenging film to make, I think, first because I, as a filmmaker, was primarily interested in this relationship to time and talking clocks, right? When we first started speaking about making this film. But then we really collaborated. And the more and more I got to know about Mark's past, I think we really wanted to bring all of these pieces in. For example, Crybaby, the record he produced, the Book of Dreams, a book on interpreting your dreams. So basically we had to find a way to create a narrative where we had both equal amount of, how do we say it, interest or information about your past, right? And then another part which was focused on the present. So it really is a film about time in the end, though. I think that as much as it's about Mark, it's also about time. It's sort of the theme and psychology, and so all of these things work together.
And it took a lot of time.
It took a lot of time.
6 months and some weeks. For when we started out, I honestly thought a couple of days. If I had an expectation of 2 or 3 days, yeah, it was very much a surprise. Yeah. But again, it was his personality, his psychosocial perspective on the film.
Thank you.
That kept me going. Yeah.
I have good psychosocial skills, as you've said, so maybe I lied. Maybe I said it was only going to take a few days.
No, I don't think you did say that.
But I remember, for example, in the beginning, Mark said, okay, you can come in and document the talking clocks in my house, and you have 2 hours. And that, no, I think and that included the interview. So finally got to the house, was getting equipment out of the car 5 minutes after the time that I said I would be there. And then we knocked on the door and you said, all right, you have 1 minute and 54 seconds, come on in. And so we had to shoot the whole interview, which is very hard to do in 1 minute and 54 seconds. But actually I appreciated these constraints. Sorry, 1 hour and 54 minutes. Yeah. So those were good constraints though, because I think as a filmmaker, then you realize you're not really in control, and by giving up that control, actually then Mark gave up control and said, you know what, that wasn't so bad, you can come back over and film the talking clocks, as long as I don't have to be involved, right? And so then
That's correct.
I got students involved and we would film the talking clocks and left Mark out of that process, and I think that was nice, that we both sort of gave something up to make this collaboration work, and that evolved just over time.
Well, the customary answer is, to my family and our cat, Siddhartha, come first. And then I think it's my classes. I still do classes online. And then I think after that, it's pretty much my books and my writings, articles and the like, yeah. Yeah. No, because I'm going to see it on next Wednesday. I didn't want to ruin the ending. Yes, I do not lie, by the way.
I've never lied. But I think I learned that from you.
Yeah. No, I do not lie.
Do you ever bend the truth, though?
No, I omit the truth.
That's a good answer.
But I don't bend the truth.
Yeah. But I think in documentary, too.
Well, and the other thing is, because of my science background, my world is a logical, rational world.
Mine's completely irrational. That's why I think we make good collaborators.
Could well be.
I don't even know what's going to happen when I wake up that day, usually.
Well, you know me and
Yeah, now Mark, on the
my
other hand,
lists
he keeps lists.
every day.
Daily lists. And on these lists, he has ordered, sometimes you do them the day before, right?
Well, I do all of them the night before, yeah.
So he does the lists, sometimes front and back, sometimes there are 2. I've even seen a day where there are 3 lists. And then he goes through the day and he checks off everything that's on the list. And why do you check it off?
And this is on my list too.
So here we are.
115. I can check it off.
There's an experience you told me, the feeling of success, when you get to check off everything on your...
Accomplishment, I don't think necessarily success, but...
It's a good feeling.
Yeah.
And what the beauty of these lists, I think, is that they go back to 1970...
78.
78. He has them all. So we can go back in Mark's life, say 1981, July 2nd, and just by virtue of looking at the list, sort of pinpoint, although you don't have the time written down on the lists, right? It's usually just the more
day.
A general day, yeah. So, yeah, and my life is, I would have trouble telling you what I did last week. So I'm nonlinear and irrational, which is, yeah, we make a good team.
Well, related to that, there's little spontaneity in my life. Because I thought it related to success in my career. I don't know if addicted is the best term. They're important to me, yeah. And I do them for every day. Yeah. But there is some research on list making. And what they have found, successful men and women tend to be list makers. Yep.
I've tried.
You know, they say behind every, what's that cliche, behind every man, successful man, there's a woman or something to that effect. Actually, what it turns out to be, behind every successful man and woman, there tends to be list making, yes.
Oh.
They got books on list making.
Yeah. I'm convinced, but I can't bring myself to do it. What does that mean?
You're a lazy ass.
Yeah, probably.
Well, when I was in community college, I was going to be a law enforcement officer. Then I was going to be a pirate.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was going to be a lawyer. And this is over a span of years. And changing your major. And then talking in a bar with my buddies. A couple of them were psych majors. And I had taken a couple of psych courses. Found out they were my favorite courses. And I think there you are. No. I was going to drop out of college for that.
We could still take that up. I think it's pretty lucrative.
Absolutely. In fact, as I asked my students for one of my books, if they had their life to do over again, that classic question, what would they change? All of them, and I think there were about 60 in my sample size, would change something. Now remember, their average age was about 26 or 29. It was a few years ago. And not one of them said I wouldn't change a thing. But no, I wouldn't change anything. Nope, things have worked.
It's a great question. I don't know. I would probably say no. I wouldn't change anything. My interest in psychology actually began in Mark's class, and it's evolved with my filmmaking. And the way we maybe disagree, though, is I think things happen for a reason. So, yeah.
Your eyebrows raised when you said that.
Well, it sounds spiritual, that's all. I'm an existential heathen. Of course, no one knows what an existential is. But anyway.
I think it's, to me, it definitely, I mean, Mark as a subject carries the film. I mean, I'm fascinated by Mark. It's the way his mind works, it's the way he relates to time And I think putting that together with his collection is interesting, I think, not only because of who you are, but also there is this theme in the film that it's kind of like, wake up, which I think that's for everyone. And I think you bring that as a professor and as a person, this idea that you can't save time.
Correct.
So what are we doing, you know? That's a strong message. So I feel like that's what I'm interested in, is why are we here, and not taking that for granted. And I think that Mark, in the construction of his life, has created that as a message, maybe even unknowingly.
Wasted, I think, is a value judgment. So if you define it as wasted, then you've wasted it. But in any meaningful context, you can't waste time. I almost said waste wine.
You can waste wine, right?
Yeah. I think that was a Freudian slip, yes. Very good. Well, as I told Mika, I hope, and I've told him this, I hope it doesn't embarrass me. Just as I hope this interview does not embarrass me.
I think it celebrates you.
Well, that's fine.
But I think for you, you're going to interpret it differently than other people because you're you. But the response has been that people really like this film because they like Mark. And like I said, there's just his presence as a performer and an artist and a professor are what make the film work, along with his collection.
That's fine.
Yeah. But now in terms of what you think about it, that will be interesting.
So uncomfortable, can I tell you a story? This wasn't that long ago, maybe around a year ago. A radio station from Denmark sent me an email and asked me if I would answer some questions live on the air for their radio station in Denmark. And I said, no, I don't do live interviews because I'm afraid I'll look like an idiot or sound like an idiot. And they wrote back and said, oh, I'll reconsider. I said, no, no, no. I'll tell you what I'll do, though. You send me the questions. I'll answer them. Send the questions back to you, answered. And then you can have someone in the studio play me. And I found out later they did. So no, I don't like interviews, no. That's a very good question, actually, because it would seem a gross inconsistency. And I don't know, maybe because it's captured on film. And my lectures, until the last couple of years, were never recorded nor ever captured on film. And so in that sense, they were, what's the word I want, ephemeral or whatever. So maybe that made a difference, I don't know.
You said that you were going to have somebody play you, right? And when we were making this film, so the way I've made documentaries in the past is I usually work a lot with the subjects and they perform something because I need them in the film, you know, not just an interview, I need them doing something. And Mark's answer to that was, hire an actor. I'm not going to do it. And so we found a way to deal with that. I played you. So maybe that's my future.
Going back, Ron's question was, I think, an excellent question. And I was thinking of another accountability for why I don't like to do interviews, but yet so much enjoyed going to class. And I think part of it has to do with the students in terms of their responses. In other words, you have 40 students sitting out there, and if you're doing a good job, they let you know it in terms of, you know, their body language or their questions or whatever. And I think that makes a big difference. I know I did a radio program for a radio station in Lorain, and I didn't like it because it was like talking to, you know, in this case, a mic. Yeah.
What you've just described is what all great performers describe, and that is being sensitive to the audience and sort of feeding off them, and being able to change your performance in relation to, you know, what is happening in the space. So I think
point.
it makes sense that if you had or have a particular performance, that you want to be able to be in control of that. And I think that's why you,
And that's a good
you
point, being in
are
control.
and were a great professor. And you like control, right?
Absolutely, and I think that's another additional good point.
We didn't get into control too much in the film, though.
No, okay.
Behind the scenes, though.
The title of the film is Forever Professor. A lot of people comment on that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I asked Ron the other day, who came up with the title?
And I want to say thank you for that, because Mark
Yeah.
titled the film.
No, I did not.
Mark was in charge of quite a bit in this film in terms of coming up with the content, right?
But not the title.
You suggested.
I did?
You went beyond suggesting.
Well, I thought it's because you saw the faculty profile that Ron did years ago and entitled The Forever Professor.
I think you said this is the title of our film.
Okay. Well, let's give credit to Ron.
Yes, thank you, Ron. So ultimately, you're the one who titled the film, so we appreciate that.
Yeah, I'm glad I did it because it's essentially over.
Or it's just begun.
No.
Well, you have this title, Forever Professor, and the film was shown at the Cleveland International Film Festival. And if we get into more festivals, this might be a new era of performance for you.
I'll record something and give it to you.
I tried to get Mark to do selfies, as in every day, because I thought that went well with the theme of forever, that we would upload those daily online, but that didn't happen. That's okay. But yeah, I'm more than satisfied with this process. I think for me, in the beginning, I didn't know what the narrative would evolve into, and I didn't know what our friendship would evolve into, and those things, you know, sort of over time decided what this would be about, and I really appreciate collaborating with you as an artist, because I think you're such an interesting artist, and
Thank you.
that comes across in the film, and so it's exciting now to be able to come back to LCC and where I was a student and share it with the students here. I'm very proud to be, you know, well, also this whole process for me, I'm proud of, because I was proud that I went here as a student and then graduated from Oberlin and then worked as a filmmaker, but was able to return to this region to find interesting people and stories that I grew up around. And so then reconnecting with my former professor, and who actually lives in the town that I grew up in, it's very meaningful for me to be able to sort of just continue this idea that, you know, we have some of the most interesting people right here in Northeast Ohio, or the idea that we have these people in our hometowns, and so that we could, you know, make a film together after all of these years. It's very rewarding to me. And then again, to be able to, after that, get it in a festival in Cleveland and then share it with people at the college here. I think when we do things in our communities and we generate interest, it benefits everybody, because it's not often that we turn on TV or watch a film and get to see something that reflects who we are. And that's what this film does.
Next year will be my 50th anniversary year here. But I think that's the testimonial to what the college and I worked out as an absolutely great, positive relationship, yeah. As I said, if I went back in life, would you change anything? Not a single thing. Nope, it's all worked. I'm very fortunate.